My name is Lisa. I was 37 years old when I was diagnosed with breast cancer. Currently, I'm 40. I had my very first mammogram at 37, and when the results of the mammogram came back, the radiologist pulled me into a very small room, dimly lit, with a tissue box, and maybe even soft music playing, and a telephone. And she handed me the report, and it said, abnormal. There was a box that you could have ticked off that said normal, a box that said probably benign. Mine said abnormal, and see your physician as soon as possible. And I knew right then and there in the pit of my stomach that something was really wrong. I felt scared, very scared, and alone. I often say I wish somebody would have given me a pink robe and a martini at that moment, but that's not the way it goes. I called my mom right away. She said, now is when you need your courage. Now, not when everything's going well, not when life is going smoothly. Now is when you need your courage. And she was right. And that one phrase sort of put me on a trajectory of becoming relentless and taking care of myself. I was diagnosed with multipapillary ductal carcinoma in situ. I had one surgery to try and remove the 4 by 2 centimeter area and the 1 by 2 centimeter area that was that had cancer. That was a failed procedure. I had a second procedure, and the doctors were incapable of clearing my margins. Apparently that type of DCIS is one of the most difficult to clear margins with. So I was hoping that I might have either another procedure and 10 weeks of radiation. And I remember sitting in the doctor's office, waiting for a long time. You do a lot of waiting. With my very best friend, and as soon as they called my name, I turned around to her and I said, I think I could take anything except being told that I need a bilateral mastectomy. But that's what they recommended. The type of cancer that I had, they guaranteed that it would come back, and that if it came back, it would come back with a 50% chance of being invasive. So I don't really feel like I had a choice, although I read everything I could to see if that was possible. But I did not have to go through chemotherapy. Prior to the procedure, I had opted for reconstruction. I found the thought of waking up with absolutely nothing very ominous. So I wanted to wake up with something. So I went immediately into reconstruction and intense physical therapy 3 weeks following the surgery. You know, it's funny, my mom moved to Philadelphia the same time that I was diagnosed on a fluke. So it was a tremendous asset to have her there, although I think it was very difficult for her to watch her child go through what she thought should have been happening in the reverse order. I think for my sister, the primary concern, being a mother, understandably, was about my niece and what were these implications for the future generations of the family. My father is currently battling pancreatic cancer. He was diagnosed after I was. And recently he said to me that he thinks what I had to go through was a little bit harder because I was 37. So how do you integrate something so devastating into your life at such a young age when possibly it's not something you think about until you are in your 70s? It was imperative to me to exercise before my surgery, to be as strong as I possibly could going in the hopes that the strength I gained prior to the surgery would allow me to recuperate faster. Before my bilateral mastectomy, I took a long bike ride, and I went to the top of the art museum steps with my bike, and I sat out in the sun, and I promised myself that at the end of this I would be riding again. So keeping that personal promise to myself, knowing that eventually I would be biking or running or swimming, it set a goal for me. You know, I never thought that I would do a triathlon until after I had beaten breast cancer. Strangely enough, some of the lessons that I gleaned from this experience propelled me across the finish line of my first triathlon, because you learn to get comfortable being uncomfortable, you learn to face your fears, you learn to make sacrifices, to make a commitment. I had to prove to myself by doing a triathlon that I was stronger than my cancer. This year, I made a commitment to Team in Training. Back in February, I went to a meeting. Team in Training is an organization that trains you to endure a multi-sport or marathon. Team in Training allowed me to integrate the experience of having cancer in my life in a positive way, because I was able to raise funds for other people who were facing the disease. I'm an educator. I've been teaching for coming on my 8th year, and it's my hope that my experiences will continue to influence my students. This year, when I crossed the finish line for Team in Training with my first Olympic triathlon, there were families there from the school where I teach. The school where I teach, William Penn Charter, was tremendously supportive of everything in terms of raising the funds and awareness about cancer. There was a young student in my school who had cancer, and that was in part why the race was important to do. And there was a young boy in my class in kindergarten who was so inspired by what we were doing that he decided to enter the race himself. There was a children's race the day before. I kept a quote on my wall, and if I can get away with saying it, I will. It's Winston Churchill. Said, if you're going through hell, keep going. Don't stop and take in the scenery. Just keep going. Put one foot in front of the other, and you'll get through it. The other thing is to really honor the fact that this is your journey, and there's no wrong way to do it, and it's your opportunity to become your own hero, and to be relentless in taking care of yourself. Do one thing nice for yourself every day. Maybe 2. My name is Lisa. I'm a survivor, and I'm a fighter.